The biggest plot twist ever. Sukuna has known all the weaknesses of Yuta, who uses the gojo body. In addition, Kenjaku has leaked the secret techniques used by Yuta to Sukuna. And with that, Sukuna felt that he could defeat Yuta very easily. And Sukuna managed to thwart all the techniques used by Yuta. But Yuta has an IQ of 1 million. He used blue to attract an object. And that object is a tape recorder. Yuta managed to pull the object closer to Sukuna, and from the tape recorder issued a cursed speech. Don't move, and it turned out to be Inumaki. By using the cursed speech through the tape recorder, he managed to make Sukuna unable to move. Even though he had to vomit blood from his mouth because he used all his strength to help Yuta, he managed to make Sukuna unable to move. Damn, this is really very genius. And after Inumaki managed to use his cursed speech technique and make Sukuna unable to move, Yuta used hollow purple for the second time. Then will the cooperation between Inumaki and Yuta be successful? What do you think, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, here is the full story of Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 262 Part 2. If you want to read the manga, I have given the link in the description. By the way, I need your help, JJK gangs. Please hit like and subscribe button. Thanks. In the previous episode, Sukuna and Yuta with Gojo's body have started to clash with each other's domains. Yuta minimized the radius of his domain to strengthen his barrier. And not only Yuta, Sukuna had also reduced the radius of his domain attack to only a few meters around Yuta's domain. And finally, his domain's attack on Yuta's domain's barrier also became stronger. Yuta intended to finish Sukuna inside the domain before the remaining time limit of his copy technique ran out, exactly 3 minutes. Meanwhile, Sukuna was confident that he could destroy Yuta's domain even before the 3 minutes passed. So right now, the situation depended on what plan Yuta would make to fight Sukuna inside the domain. And in this latest chapter, we will see how Yuta plans to defeat Sukuna. The chapter begins with a hand-to-hand fight between Sukuna and Yuta, and we are shown how Yuta is able to avoid Sukuna's punches until he is able to provide defense and counterattack by slamming and kicking him. With confidence, Yuta seems to prove that even though his limitless technique can be penetrated through the amplification domain, he still has reliable taijutsu skills. And it turned out that there was one thing that was very unfortunate. Yuta can't use techniques other than limitless together with the kenjaku technique. And this is because Rika can't be in Gojo's body. So, in that domain, Yuta was forced to fight without the company of Rika. And the reason why Rika can't be in Gojo's body is because Rika can only be in Yuta's body. This is why we were previously shown Rika crying while hugging Yuta's body full of wounds. But so far, we still don't rule out the possibility that Rika might be able to move on her own accord and help Yuta, who is in Gojo's body. Because if from the previous battle between Yuta and Rika, Rika can still release herself inside Yuta's body and move away. On the other hand, Yuta also believed that his opponent was equally weakened. After losing both of his left hands, Sukuna could no longer use the world-splitting dismantle. Because remember, Sukuna had to make hand symbols and direct his attacks to use that technique. This means that Sukuna can only rely on domain amplification to penetrate Yuta's limitless. And this made Yuta confident that he was still superior to Sukuna. And after that, Yuta delivered another powerful punch to Sukuna's face. But even though the punch was successful, it didn't look optimal, because apparently Yuta admitted that he was wrong in measuring the distance of his punch. So with just one practice of exchanging bodies with Gojo, Yuta still couldn't really use his body. Yuta realized that Gojo's hands were much longer than his. Even though he had shown his martial arts skills, Yuta could still make mistakes. Not only that, Yuta also admitted that he still couldn't master the limitless technique to the fullest, because in fact, this technique is still quite sensitive, and its use requires special accuracy. So it's only natural that with just one body swap exercise, Yuta can't really master it. Even at one moment, when Yuta tried to use the blue technique to attract Sukuna, he was wrong. That's where he realized the importance of 6 eyes for users of the limitless technique. Because even with those eyes, if the user has not really mastered the technique, mistakes can still occur. During this battle, Yuta also became increasingly aware of how great Gojo was because he was able to use his technique so extraordinary. Moreover, the fact that Gojo could confidently call himself the strongest wizard made Yuta realize all of Gojo's efforts to get to that point. So while he is still known to have super powerful inherited techniques, Gojo has also worked hard to train and master them, so that he is now known as the strongest wizard, at least in the modern era. As Yuta continued to make mistakes, Sukuna realized that he had not yet mastered the Gojo technique. And when Yuta was caught off guard, Sukuna managed to attack him to make Yuta get such a great attack. And starting from here, Sukuna also analyzed his opponent's current situation. Previously, Kenjaku had told Sukuna about Yuta's copy technique. He also knew that the condition was to let Rika eat the target's body parts. So the fact that Rika is currently not near Yuta makes Sukuna also feel suspicious. Sukuna suspected whether Yuta could still use his other copy techniques. In addition, Sukuna already knew what techniques Yuta had copied after he was locked up in Yuta's domain before. He also knew that even though he had many copy techniques, Yuta could only use them one by one. With all these considerations, Sukuna was convinced that currently Yuta could only use two techniques, namely the kenjaku technique to transfer his brain to Gojo's body, and the limitless technique that came along with that body. That is, to fight against Sukuna. Yuta can only rely on his limitless. From that assumption, Sukuna became curious about how long Yuta could maintain his copy technique, and can Yuta maintain control of Gojo's body after the copy technique time limit expires? But Sukuna also included the possibility that Yuta didn't care about the fate of his life after the copy technique time limit ended. That is, there was a chance that Yuta was ready to die. And from that possibility, Sukuna felt that Yuta might unleash his final attack without caring about his safety. For example, the unlimited hollow purple technique that Gojo had aimed at. On the other hand, Yuta recalled Gojo's advice when the two were training. Gojo seemed more assertive and kept mentioning that Yuta's curse energy control was too careless. Therefore, in this battle, we see Yuta focusing on the technique that will be used in conjunction with the hand sign. Yuta intends to release an attack with caution. While reading the memories on Gojo's body, one by one, Yuta prepares to release hollow purple and aim at Sukuna. But unfortunately, it turned out that Sukuna had read the plan that Yuta was going to do, and before Yuta managed to activate his technique, Sukuna quickly approached him and thwarted him by pulling his hand. And after that, Sukuna managed to damage his hand symbol and thwart the activation of hollow purple. Sukuna also said that the reason Gojo didn't release hollow purple during the battle with him was because this technique needed a long activation time. And because of that, Gojo switched to activating it by manually colliding red and blue. So in the current domain, Sukuna was determined not to let Yuta activate his hollow purple. But there was something unexpected. We saw how Yuta's plan turned out to be more than that. Yuta already understood that Sukuna must know that he could not use two copy techniques simultaneously. This means that when Yuta uses Limitless, Sukuna only needs to be aware of the other technique. And so far, Sukuna is very confident that he can thwart the activation of the Limitless technique attack, namely Hollow Purple. And when Sukuna was confident, Yuta was ready to bring a surprise. That's when, with the blue technique, Yuta pulled an object to get closer to Sukuna. The object was a voice recorder that seemed to have been prepared beforehand, and from the recording device, a voice was heard. "Don't move." As soon as he heard this voice, Sukuna was immediately made silent, like a statue. And it turns out the source of the voice is none other than Inumaki. This is where we are shown Inumaki with a bloody mouth trying to stop Sukuna from a distance. And as soon as Sukuna's movement stopped, Yuta also used the hand symbol and immediately reactivated the technique that Sukuna had previously failed. And finally, when Sukuna was surprised and realized if the real purple attack would be activated. And in the end, thanks to the cooperation between Yuta and Inumaki, Yuta managed to activate his hollow purple technique. And did Yuta manage to attack Sukuna with that technique until Sukuna's body was destroyed, like when Gojo destroyed Toji's body? But I have another assumption. Gege Akutami seems to be making another surprise that makes it unsuccessful, but we'll see. And that's the full story, chapter 262, part 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Here we still continue the fight between Sukuna and Yuta in the domain. We are shown how initially Yuta still has difficulty mastering Gojo's body and techniques. From wrong hits to wrong targets, Yuta made several mistakes. And in this chapter, we seem to be clarified about Gojo's prowess in using his technique to get to this point. But Yuta is also still in the process of reading the memories in Gojo's body. That way he can continue to try to master his limitless technique while fighting, and also to be able to unleash his strongest attack, the Hollow Purple. So with all his analysis, Sukuna assumed that Yuta would probably release the unlimited Hollow Purple technique. This attack was what Gojo had shown. That is, when the Hollow Purple attack is not directed at a specific target, and as a result, the explosion will spread in all directions, including the user. And according to Sukuna, if Yuta had intended to die in this battle, and therefore this attack is a reasonable choice. Besides learning the limitless technique through Gojo's memory, Yuta has also prepared a special strategy so that he can remove the purple hollow. When Sukuna thought that Yuta could only use the limitless technique, he managed to present Inumaki's technique through a voice recorder. Inumaki's curse speech technique managed to activate remotely and hit Sukuna. Even though it was only through a recorder, Inumaki was still seen bleeding from his mouth. This shows that to target Sukuna with his technique requires a very heavy load. That is, there was a chance that Inumaki's body could not hold it for long, and Sukuna ended up free again. And even so, Yuta had finished chanting his technique and was preparing to release a hollow purple shot. Keep in mind, when a technique is used complete with its hand symbol, its power output will increase from normal. And so this attack can really hit Sukuna. The resulting wound will be extraordinary. It's just that there is a possibility that this time it is not the unlimited version or the one without a target. So Yuta seemed to be aiming his shots specifically at Sukuna. That is, how big is the wound that will result from this attack? And also, whether Sukuna can escape from Inumaki's speech technique will determine the course of this battle. Because if Sukuna is injured badly enough that he can't defend his domain, the unlimited void attack will go straight to his brain. And if that happens, Sukuna's brain will be injured again so that it can no longer expand the domain. That was roughly the result that the witches were hoping for. But as usual, this Gege has played several times an event that makes us curious. So is there some kind of unexpected moment in the next chapter? Let's wait in the next episode. By the way, 1 like and subscribe, same as a Sukuna finger. So please give that finger to me. I'm Nai. See you in the next episode.